Welcome to the Headley Highlight Show's Headley Headspaces. And this headspace is called Israel and its Zombie Economy and the Exit of Norway's $2 trillion Wealth Fund. How many others are going to follow shortly? Let's discuss. Now, before I get into Israel and its zombie economy and the exit of Norway's $2 trillion wealth fund, I would like to say a couple of things. Number one, my channel is growing beautifully. I'm now at 1,800 people. Yes, I got 1,852 people, I think, already. I'm aiming to get to 2,000. It's going to take a while. I got another 160 people to go, but I'm just happy that things are moving in the direction that, that things are moving in the direction that they are moving in. And I just wanted to thank everybody who's been subscribing, who's been liking, who's been commenting and sharing. And don't forget, people, make a donation on my channel, which is the Denise Headley YouTube channel, or you can go to my website, which is deniseheadley.com, which is the same as the YouTube channel. You can go and make a donation there. And I'm very partial to 3 wings and chips and a Miranda. Or you may wish to buy me a Bitcoin, which I think is at £124,000, or, maybe a bit of ETH, going up to 4,000. So yeah, whatever you fancy, I'm very willing to accept that. So please do donate, jump in, comment, like, and share. So let's just talk about Israel and its zombie economy and the fact that Norway's $2 trillion wealth fund, sovereign wealth fund, is controlled by the government, has said thank you and good night. So the Norwegians, in a very, very forward-thinking way, secured the wealth that they had from their oil reserves into a national wealth fund for the benefit of its citizens, unlike what we did over here with North Sea gas. It was just robbed out for the usual privatized echelons of the upper classes of our society. But in Norway, they didn't do that. No, they had a different plan. So they set up this wealth fund, and this wealth fund basically invests in countries and companies so that any value it accrues, it will then be redeployed into the government's treasury for the benefit of the Norwegians. Now, what's happened is that the oil fund has divested from 11 Israeli firms. So you can basically call it a boycott. These include Bet Shemesh Engines, an aerospace manufacturer supplying the Israeli Air Force. 50 other Israel holdings still remain, with further divestments likely to occur in August from the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And this is likely to occur on the 20th of August. Now, the reason for the divestment is because of ethical and legal concerns of those companies tied to the occupation, war crimes, and violation of humanitarian law. Let's not forget that South Africa and a number of countries have already taken the Israeli state to the ICC, and there's warrants out for Benjamin Netanyahu and Smotrich, all these individuals. They're supposed to be arrested and in front of the Hague, but not happening. No surprise there. I wonder why. One of the other reasons that the sovereign $2 trillion wealth oil fund has been divested from Israeli companies is because of the backlash that the Norwegian government has faced in terms of ethical investing. And because of the destruction of Gaza, Norwegians' citizens' democracy to a degree is actually functioning, because now the pressure from those citizens have forced the sovereign wealth fund to be divested. And if you recall what happened, I think it was in one of the Illinois last week, I think one of the states agreed that they are no longer going to fund Israel. And what Mr. Trump said was that if you stop your support of Israel, because you've got money invested in their companies and that, we're not going to give you any emergency funding. So democracy doesn't always work, not in the way that you'd like. But in Norway, on this occasion, it clearly has. The sectors that this is affecting in Israel, when I'm referring to it as a zombie economy, are defense, banking, construction, and tech. And also, it's a symbolic blow because it shows that mainstream institutionals are rejecting Israel's conduct on the main stage, but also on the stage where capital is what talks. And that's a very important place to be ignored from. The impact of this on Israel is it's creating a zombie economy. It creates higher borrowing costs due to reduced foreign investment. And also, when they're buying and selling their bonds, only those individuals who've bought into the Zionist delusion are going to be looking to buy those bonds. Everybody else is like, thank you, but not today and not ever. Is also going to have an impact on their currency, and you can already see inflation is reducing that, as it's down 29% since 2023. And this undermines his narrative of economic resilience amid global isolation. That's Mr. Netanyahu. So this pressure on the Israeli economy is a real one that's being felt by ordinary Israeli citizens. This could have a cascading effect with other companies and countries looking to divest, such as the Dutch, the Danish, the Irish, those in New Zealand with pension funds with similar ethical mandates. And the reason that this is important is because this momentum legitimizes further boycotts, shifting grassroots campaigns to institutional organizations and them feeling that financial pressure from those people who they support or who pay in as members. I'm going to share with you some thoughts I picked up online from this professor, and he is very focused on looking at the politics of occupation and the impact on economies.
For joining us, the Project Censored radio program on Pacifica Radio. I'm Eleanor Goldfield, and we are joined today by Dr. Shir Hever, who's a scholar of Israel's occupation, apartheid, and genocide. Born in Israel and now living in Germany. He is a member of the Jewish Voice for a Just Peace. He's the managing director of the Alliance for Justice Between Israelis and Palestinians, and his latest book is The Privatization of Israeli Security. Dr. Hever, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to start by asking you about the state of Israel's economy, which I've talked about on the show before, but the last time I did was like a year ago. And already then people were saying that it's an absolute mess. Could you give us a picture of the economy as it is today? We're recording this on Tuesday, July 29th. What has the genocide, the attacks on Syria and Lebanon, what has all of this done to Israel's economy?
I call the Israeli economy a zombie economy because every economic indicator, every analysis conducted by professionals is saying that the Israeli economy doesn't really exist anymore. It has collapsed to the point that no sane person should give Israel any credit. The bonds that Israel is selling around the world are sold for political reasons. The only ones who are buying these bonds are just trying to finance Israel's genocide and are not really interested in making an interest payments on these bonds, because it's very unlikely that Israel will ever be able to pay back those bonds. So this is a deeper level of crisis than we've seen in economic crises of the 21st century, like in Argentina or in Greece, where the economy collapses, but the state doesn't collapse because the state institutions continue to exist. The state can still rebuild the economy, maybe reissue a new currency, make some kind of debt repayment program. This is not the case with Israel because the institutions themselves are falling apart. But nevertheless, the killing continues. The soldiers continue to fight. Those soldiers who are still deployed in Gaza. And a lot of people in Israel are continuing to live their lives as if nothing has happened. And even what is really glaring is the stock exchange in Israel, which is rising. So these things, I think, are a lesson for us in how capitalist economy works. Because we live in a kind of information age in which material things don't influence the economy the way they used to in the 20th century. And people really assign value to things like stocks based on their predictions of the future. And Israel is in a state of deep delusion. So it's not an information economy, it's a disinformation economy. And this is what makes it possible for this zombie economy to keep trotting along, even though it doesn't really have any life in it anymore.
Now, that piece of content that I just shared with you was made in the latter part of July. So let's say mid-July. That hadn't taken into account the actions of Norway in relation to them divesting their sovereign wealth fund. But a few weeks ago, I don't know if you listened to that particular headspace or that commentary. A few weeks ago, I was making comment about the Israeli economy previously, and I mentioned this company called Maersk. I have probably butchered that, but I think it's called Maersk, and they have cut ties with firms linked to illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Let's just have a quick listen.
Blow to the Israeli economy, the world's largest shipping company, Maersk, has completely stopped all shipping to Haifa port. Maersk announced that they will no longer provide commercial shipping to Haifa and will now keep this decision in place for the foreseeable future due to the persisting security threats. And this is big. This is a big blow, as I said, to the economy.
So I think that's really interesting, because what you have Maersk, which is the Danish multinational conglomerate and one of the biggest shipping and logistic companies in the world, not sailing into the port of Haifa on the basis that safety was a priority. So this is the reason why I'm bringing you this idea of a zombie economy. And I think I recall speaking a few weeks ago about those companies who had invested heavily in the destruction of Gaza. The name of the special raconteur is Angelina Albanese. And this is just a little snippet of the companies that are helping to keep that zombie economy alive. And this also speaks to the disconnect in a way between the Israeli people and the real issues that are going on with their economy, because you can always point to the stock exchange doing beautifully well when in fact the rest of the country might be living in abject poverty. But anyway, let's just listen to those companies also who are in the business of supporting the zombie economy.
Report today names dozens of companies accused of enabling what it calls an economy of genocide in Gaza. The report details 48 multinational firms by name and more than 60 others in an extended database, pointing to their role in equipping and supporting actions in occupied territories. Among the flagged defence manufacturers, Lockheed Martin, Leonardo, Caterpillar and Fanuc, behind weapons, heavy machinery and combat technology. In the tech sector, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, IBM and Palantir are cited for providing cloud infrastructure, AI and analytics used in surveillance and targeting operations. Additional companies include Volvo Group, HD Hyundai, Bright Dairy and Food, majority owner of Israel's Tenuva, and Netafim, accused of facilitating settlement growth and displacement. The UN warns these firms are not neutral. Rather, they profit from and directly enable systems of dispossession and collective punishment. But the report has triggered a direct US response. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has sanctioned Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur behind the investigation. Albanese, who called out Israeli actions as genocide and urged global legal scrutiny, is now targeted with US Treasury sanctions, her assets in America frozen, and visa access barred under a Trump-era executive order. The White House defends the move, describing Albanese's campaign as political and economic warfare against the US and its ally Israel, with no formal response yet from the UN. This conflict is no longer only about governments and armies, it's about powerful corporations and geopolitical backlash. The global spotlight is now on business accountability.
I wanted to conclude with that because I wanted to show that Israel's zombie economy actually has the support of major tech companies, major industrial war production companies using their technologies in the dispossession business of dispossessing Palestinians of their lives and their lands. And even though this is a failed economy and a failed state, is still being supported by those who are still invested in the delusion and also in their belief at how they will benefit if the delusion becomes a reality. So what's your thoughts about some of the ideas and analysis I've shared with you in this headspace. Were you aware of the financial difficulties that Israel currently finds itself in? Because you're certainly not going to hear that on mainstream or legacy media. No. Were you aware that one of the largest shipping companies effectively has pulled out of Israel and they're no longer providing shipping facilities to the port in Haifa? And what about the fact that other countries potentially will be following suit with their pension funds as they withdraw money out of Israel? And then we could see the currency experiencing possibly a devaluation. None of those thoughts or none of those conversations are actually even being had, unless, of course, you're listening to independent media. So give me your thoughts, your 2 pence, your 3 cities. Jump up all in the comments and also make a donation at DeniseHeadley.com. I'm partial to 3 wings and chips and a Miranda, and I so need a new computer. But you might want to buy me, like I said, a bit of Bitcoin. It's rising high. Thank you for your listening ear. And that's it. Cut, darlings.